Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It is a lovely start to this summer, and I am so glad on this beautiful day that you are taking the time out to watch Friday Friends. You know, it's 9 o'clock on Friday. Every Friday, I, Deb Burton, Executive Director of RI Elder Info, host the show Friday Friends, where we bring folks on that are sharing information that you or someone you know needs to know about. So please hit the like button, the share button, all those social media cues that say, hey, check this out. We're having a great conversation today. So as you know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and this show would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. So a huge thank you to Point 32 Health and United Healthcare, Oak Street Health. They are supporting our work year round. Also, a huge shout out to Washington Trust, as well as McCarthy Law, for supporting Friday Friends. We could not bring you this show without their support and their sponsorship, as well as all of the individual donations that folks have made throughout the year. It really does make a difference. We really are impacting people's lives in a big way. So thank you, and help us get the word out. Hit the like, hit the share button, and we'll be able to reach more people. So this week, I am speaking with Amanda MacGee, attorney for Washington Trust. She's the Vice President of Estate Settlements and the Fiduciary Officer for Washington Trust. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So tell me, what does a Vice President of Estate Planning and Fiduciary Officer do?
So basically, my job, and it's kind of twofold. So, one part of my job is I oversee the estates that we manage at Washington Trust. And by estates, oftentimes people use what's considered a corporate executor. So, if they don't want their family to have to go through any of that, any of the probate process, things like that. So, I oversee that for our department, working with the families. At the worst times in their lives. So we offer a lot of support for that. And then in my fiduciary officer capacity, I review documents like trusts and wills to ensure that we can act in the role that they would like us to act, and that we are doing that in the spirit of what, the client wanted and what they've worked on with their estate planning attorney.
That is awesome. I don't think I've ever really thought about the role of a bank in that, but it seems like that would make it a lot easier for many families to be able to get through the whole estate and probate process, sort of having the bank be the disinterested third party. It's awesome.
Certainly.
Yeah. So with the advances in medicine, like, we are living much longer, but studies show most of us will need some help as we age. And people don't realize a lot of times that Medicare does not cover long-term care. When would you recommend that folks start really thinking about and planning for estates and wills and trusts and all of those different pieces?
Sure. So I like to say that it's never too late, but I love for people to start as early as possible, because a lot of people tend to avoid it because it feels icky, right? It's not fun to think about us not being here. But one of the biggest advantages when you're a young person is you need someone who's going to take care of your children if you're not here. And, and then once you have that relationship established, it makes it a lot easier as you age to continue that relationship, hopefully with your same estate planning attorney or whoever their successor may be. But I would say at the very least, when I see the most people go for their estate plans is when they have grandchildren. All of a sudden, having grandkids really tends to trigger something in people, like, okay, good, I survived my kids becoming adults, and now I have grandkids, so it's time to start thinking about that, which I think is adorable. But I would say it's definitely never too early. It's also never too late. But I think, sort of, to me, the sweet spot is really, when you are 10, 20 years from retirement, it's really time to start looking at that, because they're going to be able to help you with looking at, am I going to be ready for retirement? What is that going to look like? Do I need to make adjustments? It can be very difficult for people to make adjustments if they're 1, 2, or 5 years out from retirement. So really as early as possible with making those is such a great thing to do. But there's always things that can be done. It's never too late. So when people are older, please still continue to still do that. If you haven't done it before, it doesn't mean it's too late. There just might be some different things that you have to do as opposed to other people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that if you retire at, say, 65, I think a lot of people think of 65 as a benchmark for retirement, etc. I don't know that we always think about you might have another 30 or 40 years beyond that you really need to plan for.
Mhm.
Spend as much time in
Absolutely.
retirement as you did working.
Exactly. And that's what we're seeing so much of now, which is
Yeah.
fantastic and it's wonderful, but it can also be scary if you haven't planned for that. If you're still thinking of earlier generations that only maybe had 5 or 10 years of retirement, and suddenly looking at generations that are, as you said, they're retired almost as long as they were working. So it's definitely a
Absolutely.
big shift that people have to look at.
So knowing that there is that big shift and these conversations can feel like, how do you approach the discussions about long-term care and healthcare expenses with your older clients and their families? How do you have those conversations?
Sure. So it's one of those things where it's almost easier for us to have those, kind of as the bank, because we do have a little bit of separation, and I think people more expect us to have that. I think sometimes it's harder for kids to have it with their parents, because kids don't want to think about their parents not being here. But for us, and the way I approach it, it's very respectful. Have you thought about this? We never want to be too pushy, because we don't want to stop the conversation, but just
Right.
little things like, have you thought about, what is your retirement going to look like? What are your plans for retirement? Do you want to travel? Are you somebody who's going to travel? Do you plan on moving to Florida? Do you plan on following your grandkids wherever they're going to be, if your children have moved away? Things like that. And it's more about having the conversations of, what does a perfect retirement look like to you? Because that can help us lead into, okay, now have you thought about what your care is going to look like? Are you going to be living with a child? Are you deciding that you're moving into an in-law apartment? Do you want to be fully independent for as long as possible? Things like that. And just really knowing what their lifestyle is in the moment, and what they would like to see their lifestyle be as they age, is very, very important.
Absolutely. And I think, sometimes I had a great conversation with an individual that his goal was to retire, sell everything, get an RV, drive around the country, see all the things that he worked so hard and didn't take vacation to go see. And he did it and discovered he hates driving an RV. Hates it. So
Oh my God, that's awesome.
yeah. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I'm selling the RV. I'm buying a small house. I'll take a plane.
I have to say, I would agree with him on that. I am definitely much more of I'll just take the plane. Thank you very much. So,
Yeah.
but it is. And it's also being ready for those shifts too, right? Like, I've sold everything now, and my plan is not what I wanted it to be. So now, how do we work that back into the conversation of shifting things around and what we should be changing in the
Yeah.
moment? And I think it's important that it never stops.
No.
So this planning never stops. These conversations, this isn't going to be a one-time conversation. It needs to be continuing conversations, because we're all evolving as people. We're not the same person at 30 and 50. We're not going to be the same person at 65 and 80, right?
True.
Our views and what we want to do changes.
Yeah. So what are some common strategies to help older adults manage their retirement income effectively, especially knowing who you are at 65 may not exactly be who you are at 85?
So that's a great question. So some of the strategies are really, what we talk about is, you don't want to go all in on one thing, right? That whole all eggs in one basket might not be the best thing. Although an RV is far less expensive, I think, than maintaining a house at this point. But certainly it's one of those things where we look at, and sort of the general thinking is, okay, you don't want to withdraw more than 4%, per year. That's kind of the benchmark, so that we want to look at sustainability. But we also want to make sure that people are enjoying their lives and doing what
Mm.
they want. So some of those things are really sitting down and thinking, are you somebody, as I said, somebody who's going to travel? Are you somebody who's going to, that really isn't worried about those things? Are you someone that's more than happy, that you are happy to retire and be in your home and stay there long term? Um, so that some of the strategies that we use are things like, we work with the estate planning attorney to see what their thoughts are, and also, what do you want to provide? Because the other question we need to know to strategize is, do you want to leave a legacy, or
Mm.
are you saying, my kids are fine, I don't need to leave them anything, so I can spend all of this to the fullest? So those are really the things. It's really about getting to know our clients and the people that we work with, because the strategy is going to change for every single person, because everybody has a different view as to what their life should look like, what they want to leave their children. Are they going to be, are they going to be helping grandchildren with college? Are they not going to be helping grandchildren with college? Things like that. So the strategies really vary person to person, which is great. It's one of the things that I love, because I will never have two of the same clients. And I think that that's wonderful. So there's really just there's a lot of things that we incorporate into that to try and make sure that we're working as best we can. Do you want to be super exposed? There are people who are very happy to be very exposed to the stock market. But if you're nervous and you want to look at, long term, what is happening for your life, do we decide, the stock market isn't really the place for you right now? Maybe we pull back on that and just let you have these more safe returns. So it really depends on each individual person for that. But there's always something that we can do to adjust for each person.
Yeah, absolutely. So recently, RI Elder Info received some grant funding to take a look at older adults who are caring for adult family members with disabilities. And I'm thinking, when we think about caring for our children, a lot of times we think of that in terms of being a parent to little ones, but we never really stop being parents. If you do have a child who has a disability, are there ways to be able to make sure that they're taken care of after you pass away? Are there special accounts or anything
Absolutely.
like that that can be done?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question, because we're seeing that more and more at Washington Trust. So there are a couple of different things. One, there's a special account called an ABLE account. So the ABLE account, that's really it's a tax savings account. There are a lot of parameters around it. It's definitely something that I would say you would want to, sit down with somebody who knows about Social Security and disability things and all of that. But that's one way. Another way that we're seeing a lot more of is what's called a special needs trust, which is a very effective tool for people who have adult children with disabilities.
And when it comes to able accounts or a special needs trust, is that the kind of thing where it's really important that the adult parent really works with like an elder law attorney as well as someone such as yourself at the bank to make sure that the parents' wishes are followed for for the adult child? Is that like a good partnership with an elder law attorney and the bank?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's very important, because I think, to me, what I've seen in these situations, especially with special needs trusts, is our parents, they're terrified of what's going to happen to their children, and how are they going to be taken care of? They know they're not going to be able to take care of themselves. So partnering with an elder law attorney, like I said, a Social Security or disability attorney, and the bank is a great thing, because with Washington Trust, we can come on as trustee, and if we've already have that pre-established relationship with you, then we can work with you. First of all, before we even come on as trustee, we can work with you then, so we understand, okay, these are the different things that they would like to pay for. These are the different things that that are important to them, and all of that. And we get to know the family. And then it gives that parent the peace of mind that when eventually they do pass on, somebody is there who knows exactly what they want, who knows exactly how to who knows their child, quite frankly, because that's such an important piece. You don't want to have that sort of, cold person coming in that you don't know. But also there's a lot of parents that say, I don't want to put this, I don't want to give this responsibility to another one of my children who may have children of their own. That may be too much to ask a sibling. So it's a really great role that we have to be able to help these families through that. And especially the sooner that we can start, the better and stronger the relationship is long term, because then we are really at the forefront with your family of taking care of anything to give you that peace of mind.
And then that way, that your adult child has someone that is somewhat familiar to them to be able to help them navigate after you pass. And I think one of the things that we're seeing a tremendous explosion in is the amount of scammers that are out there who are promising the whole world in exchange for, your credit card information, your date of birth, your social. You won the Irish lottery. The prince wants you, or the Marine who's stuck in Ukraine. They just need a little bit of money. Or these days, the deep fakes for the grandkid who needs to get out of jail. I would think that, having something set up like a trust account, like an Able account ahead of time would kind of buffer some of that, especially since there are some creeps out there who they surf the obituaries to become that widower, individual with a disability, like their new best friend who wants to help them so much, meaning they want to help themselves to their money.
Absolutely.
There's so many of them out there. What does Washington Trust do to protect its clients from financial abuse? Do you offer fiduciary services for all of your clients, some of your clients, the ones with Able or special needs trust? How does that work? What does Washington Trust do?
So there's a lot of great things that Washington Trust is doing, and I see it happen literally every single day. I mean, this is such a hot topic right now. Unfortunately, it's a terrible topic to have as a hot topic, but at this point, I feel like at least every other day I'm getting a new alert from my team saying, this person is, they have accidentally, unintentionally given their information. We now have a fraud alert. Let's make sure we're checking. So a couple of things that we do. One, we always call our clients back on the number we already have for them. We never call them back at the number that has called us. So we always go into the system if they're looking for a financial transfer, and we ask a lot of questions, especially if it's not a regular transfer. All of a sudden they want $50,000 to go to this person that we have never heard about or talked about or know about. And so we ask all of the, do you know this person? Did you meet them in person? All of those kinds of things to ensure that they're really, and, are you positive? Did you call? Oh, my grandchild, they said not to call their parents. And I think you should call their parents and ask first. Or did you call the grandchild back on their own cell phone to make sure? Things like that. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of that Washington Trust has been so great at stopping is there's a lot of check washing that's happening. And what that is so people are sending bills with a check, which, there's not a lot of people that use checks. My mom still uses them. She's very faithful to writing out checks. So you'll send your check and somehow it gets intercepted. If you don't go directly to the post office. So there are people who are intercepting them, phishing in mailboxes. It's terrible. I've seen people use I haven't seen them, but I've heard of them. They use tacky things on sticks and pull things out of the mailbox. And then they're able to, it's crazy. If they use their powers for good, it would be amazing. But instead, they do what's called washing the checks, and they can clean everything, all of the ink off the check except for your signature, and they can change it to be written out to them for whatever amount they would like.
Ooh.
And then they take that to the bank and attempt to cash it. And there's been more than once when I have gotten calls from beneficiaries or clients of mine who've said, I'm so grateful. Washington Trust called me because it didn't seem like a regular, thing for me to be paying this person, and they were trying to get cash and they were able to stop it. So we're really, we take these things very, very seriously at Washington Trust. There's nothing worse. And frankly, I've seen this with my own family. I have an elder cousin, and she is in her 80s, and she had somebody call her as the grandchild, and she went to her bank up in Massachusetts, and they did hand her over $25,000 in cash. And thankfully, her neighbor is the one who was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't think you should do this. And we were able to stop her from sending that money to a place that it shouldn't have gone. But it is very scary. It's something that I think, again, we take very seriously. We work with our clients. We try to make sure that alerts go out to everybody when there's a new scam. Unfortunately, these things happen. There seems to be a new one every single day, which is, again, it's awful. And but it is definitely something that we stay very much on top of. And it certainly is. If we come on to your other question, and my apologies for this is such a passion project of mine with
I can
being
tell.
upset about, like, it just nothing bothers me more than people who try to scam from people who, quite frankly, are living on fixed incomes and things like that. It's terrible. But to answer your other question, what fiduciary roles can we do at Washington Trust? So we can act as a trustee for a trust. We can act as executor for a person's will. The only one that we really are not able to do is we don't act as a power of attorney. However, if we act as trustee and all of your assets are in a trust, that's effectively acting in the very same manner as a power of attorney. So if that's something that people are concerned and they want to protect their funds, and they work with an estate planning attorney and everything goes into trust, and they would like us to act as trustee, either with them, because we can do that as co-trustee, or if they are like, you know what, I'm getting to the point where I don't want to manage this, I want somebody else, and then we can just act as sole trustee. It's really up to the person. But that can help us to act in a fiduciary capacity to really protect them as best we possibly can with any scammers or things like that. And just in general, if something happens and they're incapacitated and their bills still need to be paid, if we're as trustee and those are where their finances are, we're able to take care of all of that for them and on their behalf.
That's really important, because I think sometimes we forget that if we're sick in the hospital, your house taxes still need to be paid. Your utilities need to be paid, especially, I mean, it's summer now, but I mean, in the winter, otherwise, you don't pay your heating bill, your pipes are going to blow. And so when you get home from the hospital, that ain't fun. So that's a nice layer of protection for people.
It really is. And I think a lot of people really, really like that. And to me, that's the best way, again, for me to get to know the clients, because we work, I think there's still there's like this perception that banks are cold, kind of cold and all of that. But that's the best way for me to get to know my clients, to get, it's the most intimate relationship you can have, is being an estate planner or a banker. If you're doing it well, you know more about these people than almost anybody, than most of their friends do, quite frankly. So it's such an important familiarity relationship that's why I love what I do. It's why I continue to do what I do.
I can tell you're passionate about it. And I'm sure that if, June is World Elder Abuse Awareness Month. So I'm sure if you have questions about whether or not someone is or isn't safe, like the first line of defense would be to notify, the police, but then also the Office of Healthy Aging at the 401-462-0555 number to get them help out there in the community. So I think that's really important, that you offer these services, but that extra layer of protection. Can tell you're really passionate about it.
I love it. It's like I said, I've been doing this a long time. It's something that I'm just so happy to be a part of, and I'm happy to be part of such a great organization that takes it so seriously.
Yes. And Washington Trust, I don't know if you know, Washington Trust has testified before the legislature on ways to prevent elder financial abuse. You're part of the Elder Justice Coalition. And that, folks, is why I asked Washington Trust to be one of our sponsors for Friday Friends, because you have this legacy of looking out for and making sure that our older adults are safe. And that's something super important.
Absolutely. I mean, all things going well, all of us are going to age, right? In best
Amen.
Case scenario, all of us are going to age. So it's very important to have people out there that care this deeply as we do.
Yeah, I can totally see it. I said, "Oh, can you come on for like 10 minutes?" And I've kept you almost 3 times as long.
Oh, it's
But I
completely
love your
fine. It's
passion.
wonderful.
Yeah, I love your passion. Like, I can tell, like, you really genuinely care. This is not just like another account with zeros on it. These are human beings.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, Amanda, thank
But
you so
thank
much
you.
for coming
I
on
loved
today.
being
I
here.
appreciate this because I love your passion about it. You're excited about it, and the resources that can genuinely make a difference in people's lives. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me. It was absolutely wonderful to be here, and I hope that we get to talk again soon.
Absolutely. And I kept you almost triple the time.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everybody, it is amazing the things that can allow you to remain in control of your life, your assets, your wishes as you get older. And we talked about some of them today. I encourage you to reach out to make sure that the things that you want are done in the manner that you want them done. And part of that is to do this kind of estate planning, to set up the trusts, to make sure that you're in control of things as you get older, even if there is a medical episode that maybe makes that more challenging for you. And again, if you happen to be, like Amanda was saying, if you happen to be that neighbor who notices someone just did a big withdrawal to get the kid out of jail or is getting gift cards to pay a tax thing, and you say, something's not right there, make sure you call that into the Office of Healthy Aging Adult Protective Services. Their number is 401 462 0555. And of course, if somebody's in immediate danger, you're going to call 911. I think I don't need to repeat that, but just in case, if somebody's in immediate danger, call 911. You think, something's not quite right, call the Office of Healthy Aging, 401 462 0555. Folks, I am really glad that you have joined me today. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. In the meantime, be well and be kind.
If you like this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com.